Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the massive machine in front of him. The atmospheric processor hummed quietly now, finally working after 16 hours of repairs. His back ached and his eyes burned from staring at tiny circuits all day. This was his life on Kepler 442c, a small mining colony at the edge of known space. He walked through the empty corridors of the maintenance section. Most people were already at dinner in the main hall. Marcus could hear their voices and laughter echoing through the metal walls. He stopped to wash his hands and face in the small sink outside the mess hall. His reflection looked tired. At 32, he already had gray streaks in his black hair. The mess hall was warm and bright. About 60 colonists sat at long metal tables, eating and talking. Marcus grabbed a tray and loaded it with synthetic protein, recycled vegetables, and a cup of coffee that tasted like dirt. He found an empty spot at the end of a table and sat down. "Hey, Marcus," called out Jim Patterson, the mining supervisor. "Heard you got the big processor working again." "Nice job." Marcus nodded and took a bite of his food. Just needed new coolant tubes and some rewiring. Nothing too difficult. No. Around him, families sat together. Children played between the tables while their parents talked about their day. Couples held hands and shared their meals. Marcus ate alone, like always. He had been on this colony for 3 years, and in all that time, he had never been on a single date. Sarah Miller, who ran the communications center, sat down across from him. "You look exhausted, Marcus. When was the last time you took a day off?" "Can't remember," Marcus said honestly. "The machines don't fix themselves." "You need to have some fun once in a while," Sarah said. "Maybe find someone special." Marcus laughed, but it sounded bitter. "Right. Look around, Sarah. Everyone here is already married or dating someone else. I'm the only single guy left, and I spend my days talking to machines that don't talk back." Sarah frowned. "You're a good man, Marcus. Smart, funny, hardworking. The right person will come along." "When?" Marcus asked. "I haven't seen Earth in 5 years. I don't even remember what real sunlight feels like. My social skills are so bad that I have better conversations with my repair tools than with people." At that moment, Jim Patterson stood up at his table. He raised his beer and smiled at his wife, Jenny. "Everyone, I have great news. Jenny and I just found out we're going to have our second baby." The whole mess hall cheered and clapped. People crowded around Jim and Jenny, hugging them and offering congratulations. Marcus watched from his corner, feeling more alone than ever. The celebration went on for several minutes. Finally, people started sitting back down. Marcus finished his coffee and stood up. Something inside him snapped. Maybe it was the loneliness, or maybe it was just too much caffeine. He climbed up on his chair and raised his own cup. "Hey, everyone!" he shouted. The room got quiet, and everyone turned to look at him. "I have an announcement too." Sarah looked worried. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Marcus felt his face getting red, but he couldn't stop now. "Well, since everyone else is sharing good news, I thought I'd make my own announcement. If anyone out there in the vast universe wants to marry a guy who talks to machines all day and hasn't seen Earth in 5 years, I'm available." He gestured wildly with his cup, spilling coffee on his shirt. "I'm single, desperate, and really good at fixing broken things. I can cook instant noodles. I know 47 different ways to repair a fusion generator, and I promise to always put the toilet seat down." The room was completely silent for a moment. Then Jim Patterson started laughing. Soon everyone was laughing and clapping. Marcus felt his face burning with embarrassment. But he took a dramatic bow anyway. Thank you," he called out. "I'll be here all week. Actually, I'll be here for the next 2 years, because that's when my contract ends." Marcus climbed down from his chair and sat back down. The laughter continued for a few more minutes. Then people went back to their conversations. Sarah reached across the table and patted his hand. That was quite a speech, she said with a smile. Feeling better? Marcus rubbed his face. I think I just made a fool of myself in front of the entire colony. Maybe. But at least you got it out of your system. What Marcus didn't know was that his joke had been picked up by more than just the people in the mess hall. The colony's communication system recorded everything that happened in public areas for security purposes. During the next scheduled data transmission to Earth, Marcus's speech was automatically included in the weekly colony report. The transmission was sent through the Galactic Communication Network, a system that connected human colonies across dozens of star systems. Marcus's words, encoded in standard human broadcast protocols, traveled through space at faster than light speed. But the network didn't only carry human messages. Other species had learned to monitor human communications, studying this young race that had only recently joined the galactic community. Most aliens ignored human chatter as primitive and boring. One species, however, found human emotions fascinating. They had been listening to human broadcasts for decades, learning about love, hope, and loneliness. When Marcus's desperate, funny marriage proposal reached their ships, it was flagged by their computers as something unusual. Marcus finished his dinner and returned to his small room. He lay on his narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would wake up, fix more machines, eat another lonely meal, and go to bed alone again. His joke had given the colonists a good laugh, but nothing would really change. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. 3 weeks later, everything would change forever. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus made his embarrassing speech in the mess hall. Life on the colony had returned to normal. People still smiled when they saw him, remembering his joke. But no one mentioned it anymore. Marcus was glad. He had enough embarrassment to last a lifetime. He was working on a broken water recycling unit when the alarm started blaring. The sound echoed through the maintenance tunnels, making his ears ring. Marcus dropped his tools and ran toward the communications center. The alarm meant only one thing. An unknown ship was approaching the colony. Sarah Miller was already at her station when Marcus arrived. Her fingers flew over the control panel as she tried to identify the approaching vessel. Several other colonists crowded into the small room, their faces worried. "What do we know?" asked Jim Patterson, who had rushed over from the mining operations. "It's big," Sarah said, staring at her screen. "Really big. But it's not showing up on our ship identification system. The design doesn't match anything in our database." Marcus looked over her shoulder at the radar display. The ship was definitely not human. Its shape was long and curved, almost like a living creature. Most human ships were built with straight lines and sharp angles. This one looked organic, as if it had grown instead of being built. "How far away is it?" Marcus asked. "About 10 minutes until it reaches our orbital space," Sarah replied. "Should I send a warning transmission?" "Do it," Jim said. "Standard protocols. Identify ourselves and ask them to state their intentions." Sarah typed quickly and sent the message. They waited in tense silence. Marcus felt his heart beating fast. In 3 years on the colony, they had never had any contact with alien ships. Earth had made contact with a few other species, but most aliens avoided the outer colonies. The reply came faster than expected. Sarah's face went pale as she listened to her headphones. She looked up at the others with wide eyes. "They're responding on our emergency channel," she said slowly, in perfect English. "And they're asking for Marcus Chen specifically." Everyone turned to look at Marcus. He felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "Me? Are you sure?" Sarah nodded and switched on the speakers so everyone could hear. A woman's voice came through the static. The voice was beautiful, but strange, with an accent Marcus couldn't identify. "This is Lirale Voss requesting permission to dock at Kepler 442c colony. I am here regarding the marriage proposal from Marcus Chen. Please respond." The room went completely silent. Marcus felt his face turn red as everyone stared at him. Jim Patterson's mouth hung open. Sarah blinked several times as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. Did she just say marriage proposal? Jim asked quietly. Marcus wanted to disappear. It was a joke. You all heard it. I was just being stupid. The alien voice came through the speakers again. Marcus. Chen. I have traveled many light years to meet you. My analysis indicates a high compatibility rating between our species. May I come aboard your station? Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. What do I tell her? Tell her there's been a mistake, Marcus said, but part of him was curious. An alien woman had traveled across space because of his stupid joke? It was impossible. But it was happening. Jim Patterson took charge. Tell her she can dock, but we want to meet her in the main airlock with a full security team. Sarah sent the message and received confirmation. The alien ship would dock in 15 minutes. Word spread quickly through the colony. By the time they reached the main airlock, almost everyone was there waiting. Marcus stood at the front with Jim and Sarah. His hands were shaking. Through the airlock window, he could see the alien ship approaching. Up close, it looked even more organic. The hull seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. Strange blue lights ran along its surface in patterns that reminded Marcus of blood vessels. The ship attached to their docking port with a soft thud. Marcus heard the hiss of air pressure equalizing. The inner door of the airlock cycled open, and everyone held their breath. The woman who stepped through was the most beautiful creature Marcus had ever seen. She was very tall, at least 7 feet, with pale skin that seemed to glow softly in the artificial light. Her hair was long and silver, and her eyes were the color of starlight. She moved with incredible grace, as if she was floating instead of walking. But Marcus noticed other things too. Her arms and legs were longer than a human's, giving her an elegant but alien appearance. When she smiled at him, he saw that her teeth were very white and very sharp, especially her canine teeth. Marcus Chen, she said, and her voice was even more beautiful in person. I am Lirelei Voss of the Sanguinari. Thank you for accepting my request to meet. Marcus tried to speak, but no words came out. Jim Patterson stepped forward. I'm Jim Patterson, the colony administrator. We're honored to meet you, but we're also very confused. What exactly is happening here? Lirelei's silver eyes never left Marcus's face. 3 weeks ago, your colony transmitted a marriage proposal to the Galactic Communication Network. My ship's artificial intelligence system intercepted this transmission and analyzed the biological and psychological data contained within it. She paused and tilted her head slightly. The analysis showed a compatibility rating of 97.3% between Marcus Chen and my species. This is the highest compatibility rating ever recorded in our history. But it was a joke, Marcus finally managed to say. Lirelei looked confused. A joke? You mean it was false information? No, I was just being funny. I didn't really expect anyone to answer. Especially not someone from space. I see, Lirelei said thoughtfully. Your species uses humor as a way to express genuine emotions. This is fascinating. My people have studied human behavior, but we do not fully understand your use of comedy to hide pain. Marcus felt embarrassed, but also strangely understood. This alien woman had seen through his joke to the loneliness underneath. What exactly are the Sanguinari? Sarah asked carefully. Lirelei smiled, showing those sharp teeth again. In your language, you would probably call us vampires. But we are not the monsters from your fiction. We are an ancient species that has traveled the galaxy for thousands of years, seeking knowledge and compatible partners. The colonists stepped back nervously. Marcus, however, found himself stepping forward. Vampires, he said. Do you drink blood? That is a common misconception, Lirelei replied. My people evolved beyond such primitive needs long ago. We feed on bioelectric energy, the natural electromagnetic fields that all living beings produce. We do not need to harm anyone to survive. To demonstrate, she walked over to a potted plant that sat near the airlock. The poor thing had been dying for weeks, despite Sarah's efforts to save it. Lirelei placed her hand near the plant without touching it. Immediately, the wilted leaves became green and healthy again. The colonists gasped. Marcus stared in amazement. That's incredible. You can heal things? Among other abilities, Lirelei said. My people have many skills that could benefit your colony, Marcus Chen. We are natural engineers and scientists. We understand technology in ways that might seem like magic to younger species. Why me, though? Marcus asked. I'm nobody special. I'm just a guy who fixes machines. Lirelei's expression became gentle. You underestimate yourself, Marcus Chen. Your transmission contained not just words, but emotional patterns, brainwave signatures, and genetic markers. Our analysis shows that you possess qualities my people find extremely rare. Genuine kindness, persistence in the face of difficulty, and the ability to find humor, even in loneliness. She stepped closer to him. These traits are precious to the Sanguinari. We have been searching the galaxy for 10,000 years, and in all that time, we have found very few beings compatible with our nature. Your species, humans, show remarkable promise. Marcus felt overwhelmed. This beautiful, mysterious woman had traveled across space because of his stupid joke, and she was talking about compatibility and marriage as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. This is all happening very fast, he said, weakly. Lirelei nodded. I understand. Perhaps we could spend time together? Learn about each other? I have come a very long way, Marcus Chen, and I would very much like to know you better. Marcus looked around at his fellow colonists. Some looked scared, others curious. Sarah was smiling encouragingly at him. Jim Patterson just shrugged as if to say, Your choice. Marcus took a deep breath and looked back at Lirelei. Okay, let's talk. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus's life changed completely. Lirelei had been given a guest room in the colony's residential section, and she spent most of her time learning about human culture and helping with various problems around the station. Marcus was amazed by how quickly she learned. He showed her how to use the coffee machine in the mess hall, and within minutes, she had figured out how to make it work better than ever before. When the children's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, complained about the broken holographic display in the classroom, Lirelei fixed it with tools that looked like they were made from crystal and light. Your technology is interesting, she told Marcus as they walked through the colony's main corridor. Very direct and practical. My people tend to make things more complicated than necessary. How old are you? Marcus asked. It was a question that had been bothering him for days. Lirelei smiled. In your years, I am approximately 812 years old. Marcus stopped walking. 800 years? You're older than entire civilizations. Time moves differently when you live as long as the Sanguinari do, Lirelei said gently. But it also means I have watched many species rise and fall. I have seen entire worlds bloom with life and then become dust. It can be very lonely. RSS. Marcus understood loneliness. Is that why you answered my message? Because you're lonely too? Partly, yes, but also because your message was so honest. Most beings try to hide their pain or pretend they don't need companionship. You were willing to admit your loneliness in front of your entire community. That takes courage. They continued walking until they reached the observation deck. Through the large windows, they could see Kepler 442c's red sun setting behind the mountains. Lirelei's ship hung in space nearby, its organic curves beautiful against the starfield. Tell me about your people, Marcus said. Lirelei was quiet for a moment. We are an old race, Marcus. We have traveled the galaxy for so long that we barely remember our home world. We live in great ships that carry our entire civilization from system to system. Why do you travel all the time? Don't you ever want to settle down somewhere? We tried that once, long ago. We found a beautiful world and built cities. We thought we could live peacefully there, forever. Liralay's expression became sad. But peaceful times made us soft. When the Void Hunters found us, we barely escaped. Most of our people died, including my parents and siblings. Marcus felt a chill. Void Hunters? A species that destroys other races for pleasure. They still hunt us across the galaxy. That is why we never stay in one place too long, and why we are always searching for allies and compatible partners. Marcus reached out without thinking and took her hand. Her skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. I'm sorry. That sounds terrible. Liralay looked down at their joined hands with surprise. You are not afraid of touching me? Should I be? Most species are uncomfortable with physical contact with sanguinari. They fear we will drain their energy. Will you? Marcus asked, but he didn't let go of her hand. Not unless you want me to. And even then, it would feel pleasant, not harmful, like a warm massage for your mind. Long. As the days passed, Marcus noticed changes in himself. He needed less sleep, and his night vision improved dramatically. He could see clearly in the maintenance tunnels, even when the lights were dim. His stamina increased too. Jobs that used to take him hours now took minutes. Is this because of you? He asked Liralay one morning as they shared breakfast. Proximity to a sanguinari can enhance compatible species, she admitted. Your body is adapting to my bioelectric field. You are becoming stronger, faster, more aware. But these changes only happen with truly compatible individuals. The other colonists had begun to accept Liralay as well. When little Tommy Patterson fell and broke his arm, she healed the bone in minutes using her energy manipulation abilities. When the main power generator started making strange noises, she diagnosed the problem instantly and showed Marcus how to fix it properly. Sarah Miller was particularly fascinated by Liralay's knowledge. You've seen so much of the galaxy. What are other alien species like? Each one is unique, Liralay replied as they sat in the communications center. The crystalline collective thinks entirely in mathematical equations. The gas swimmers of Nebula 7 communicate through changes in atmospheric pressure. The metal shapers build their bodies from pure elements and can reshape themselves at will. And humans? Marcus asked. How do we compare? Liralay was quiet for a long moment. Humans are remarkable, Marcus. Most species become set in their ways as they develop space travel. They create rigid societies and stop growing. But humans continue to surprise us. You adapt quickly, you never give up, and you find wonder in simple things that ancient races take for granted. Like what? Like the way you smile when you successfully repair a machine, or how your people gather together just to share food and conversation, or the fact that you made a joke about marriage and actually meant it, even though you were hiding behind humor. Marcus felt his face get warm. I did mean it, I suppose. I really would like to find someone to share my life with. Even if that someone is not human? Marcus looked at Liralay carefully. Over the past 2 weeks, he had come to admire her intelligence, kindness, and strength. She was alien, yes, but she was also wonderful. Liralay smiled, and Marcus felt his heart beat faster. But before either of them could say anything more, an alarm started blaring throughout the colony. Sarah immediately turned to her communication panel. Unknown ship approaching, she announced. It's big. Really big. Marcus and Liralay ran to the observation deck. In the distance, a massive vessel was approaching their system. It was even more organic looking than Liralay's ship, with writhing tentacle-like appendages and a hull that seemed to shift and change color. Liralay's face went pale. "No," she whispered. "They found me." "Who found you?" Marcus asked. Though he was already afraid, he knew the answer. "My people. The Sanguinari High Council." Liralay turned to him with fear in her silver eyes. "I was not supposed to make contact with your species. I violated our most sacred law by revealing our true nature to humans." "What does that mean?" "It means they will take me back to our fleet for punishment." "And your colony?" She paused, her voice breaking. "Your colony will be destroyed to prevent knowledge of the Sanguinari from spreading to other humans." Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. "They can't do that. We haven't done anything wrong." "The Council does not see it that way. They believe younger species are not ready to know about us. They have destroyed entire civilizations to keep our secrets." The massive ship was getting closer. Marcus could see smaller vessels detaching from it and heading toward the colony. Liralay's beautiful face was filled with despair. "I should never have come here," she said. "I have doomed you all." Marcus took her hands in both of his. "No. You brought hope to a lonely man and helped our entire community. Whatever happens next, I'm glad you answered my stupid joke." Liralay looked at him with amazement. "Even knowing that my people may kill you for it?" Marcus thought about the past 2 weeks. He thought about how alive he had felt with Liralay around, how the colony had prospered with her help, and how much he had come to care about this strange, wonderful woman from the stars. "Especially knowing that," he said firmly, "some things are worth the risk." Through the window, the Sanguinari ships grew larger and more threatening. But Marcus wasn't afraid anymore. He had found something worth fighting for. The communication system crackled to life. A cold, ancient voice filled the colony's speakers. "Humans of Kepler 442c. I am High Counselor Vex Morrigan of the Sanguinari. You will surrender Liralay Voss immediately or face destruction." Marcus squeezed Liralay's hands tighter. "Not without a fight," he said quietly. "Not without a fight." The Sanguinari dreadnought was so massive that it blocked out half the stars when it arrived at the colony. Marcus had never seen anything so terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The ship's hull pulsed with dark energy, and strange appendages moved across its surface like the arms of some cosmic sea creature. 5 smaller ships detached from the dreadnought and approached the colony's docking bays. Marcus stood with Liralay in the main airlock, waiting. The entire colony population had gathered behind them, their faces showing fear and determination in equal measure. "You should run," Liralay whispered to Marcus. "Take your people and flee in your ships. Maybe you can escape before they power up their weapons." "We don't run," Marcus said firmly. Jim Patterson stepped up beside Marcus. "The boy's right. This is our home. If someone wants to destroy it, they'll have to go through all of us." Sarah Miller nodded from her position at the communications console. "I've sent a message to Earth Command, but it will take weeks to reach them. Whatever we do, we're on our own." The first Sanguinari ship docked with a sound like thunder. The airlock cycled open, and 3 figures emerged. They were tall and elegant, like Liralay, but their presence felt cold and dangerous. Their eyes glowed with ancient power, and their movements were precise and predatory. The leader was clearly in charge. He stood over 8 feet tall, with skin pale as moonlight and silver hair that moved as if it was underwater. His eyes were not starlight like Liralay's, but cold blue fire. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the docking bay with authority that came from centuries of command. "I am High Counselor Vex Morrigan," he said, looking directly at Liralay. "You have violated the Prime Directive, child. You have revealed our nature to a primitive species without permission." Liralay stepped forward, her head held high despite her obvious fear. "Honored Counselor, I acted within the parameters of our search for compatible species. The human Marcus Chen showed remarkable compatibility ratings. Compatibility ratings mean nothing if the species is not ready for contact. Morrigan's gaze shifted to Marcus and the other humans. Look at them. They are children, playing with fusion fire. They have barely left their home world, yet you would share our secrets with them? Marcus felt anger burning in his chest. We're not children. We're human beings trying to make a life out here in space. And we're not primitive just because we're younger than you. Morrigan laughed, and the sound was like ice breaking. The insect speaks. How amusing. He turned back to Lirelei. You will return to the fleet immediately for mind cleansing. This foolish attachment will be removed from your memory. What about the colony? Lirelei asked desperately. The colony and all its inhabitants will be sterilized. No witnesses can remain. No, Marcus said, stepping between Morrigan and Lirelei. I won't let you hurt these people, because of something I did. Morrigan looked down at Marcus as if he was studying an interesting bug. And how exactly do you plan to stop me? Human. My ship carries enough power to turn your entire world into glass. Marcus's mind raced. He remembered stories from Earth's history. Tales of warriors facing impossible odds and finding ways to win through courage and cleverness. There had to be something he could do. What about your own laws? Marcus asked. Lirelei told me the Sanguinari value compatibility above all else. If I really have the highest compatibility rating in your history, doesn't that mean something? ADO. Wadion News. D-na. D-na. Wadion. It means you are a statistical anomaly, nothing more. Then prove it, Marcus said, his voice getting stronger. Test me. See if I really am compatible with your people, or if your computers made a mistake. Morrigan's cold eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? Marcus took a deep breath. This was the biggest gamble of his life. I challenge you to a formal compatibility contest. Isn't that part of your culture? When someone wants to mate with a Sanguinari, they have to prove their worth? Lirelei gasped. Marcus, no. The trials are designed for beings who have lived for centuries. No human has ever attempted them. But the law says I can try, right? Marcus looked directly at Morrigan. If I pass your tests, then Lirelei gets to choose her own fate and you leave the colony alone. If I fail, you can do whatever you want. Morrigan was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see him thinking, considering the legal implications of the challenge. Finally, he smiled, and his sharp teeth gleamed in the artificial light. Very well, human. I accept your challenge. But understand what you are asking for. The trials test not just physical ability, but knowledge, adaptability, and mental strength. They are designed to break candidates who are not truly worthy. I understand, Marcus said, though his heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. The first trial begins immediately. Knowledge. Morrigan gestured, and one of his companions stepped forward, carrying what looked like a crystal sphere. You will answer questions about quantum mechanics, xenobiology, galactic history, and advanced physics. Most candidates with university degrees from advanced civilizations fail this test. Marcus felt sweat on his forehead. He had an engineering degree, but he was no expert on alien biology or galactic history. Still, he nodded. I'm ready. The crystal sphere began to glow, and information flooded into Marcus's mind. The first question appeared in his thoughts. Explain the relationship between quantum entanglement and faster-than-light communication across galactic distances. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about everything Lirelei had taught him over the past 2 weeks. She had explained how Sanguinari ships traveled between stars, using paired particles to send messages instantly across space. He began to speak, explaining the science as best he understood it. The questions kept coming. Some were about alien species he had never heard of. Others were about mathematical concepts that made his head hurt. But Marcus had spent his entire life learning how machines worked, and machines followed the same basic principles, whether they were human-built or alien. When the crystal stopped glowing, Morrigan looked surprised. Acceptable. You answered 67% of the questions correctly. Most candidates from spacefaring civilizations score 70%. The colonists behind Marcus cheered quietly. He had passed the first test. The second trial is adaptability, Morrigan announced. You will be transported to an alien environment and must survive for 24 hours using only basic supplies. Marcus was beamed down to the surface of a nearby moon. The environment was hostile beyond imagination. The air was barely breathable. The gravity was too high, and strange creatures hunted in the dark. Marcus had only basic survival gear and his own determination. But humans were survivors. Marcus's ancestors had lived through ice ages and droughts, had crossed oceans in tiny boats, and built cities in deserts. He used his engineering knowledge to build shelter from the alien materials around him. When predators attacked, he fought them off with improvised weapons. When his water ran low, he figured out how to extract moisture from the strange plants. 24 hours later, when the sanguinary beam brought him back to the colony, Marcus was exhausted and covered in cuts and bruises. But he was alive. Impressive, Morrigan admitted. You showed remarkable resourcefulness. Most candidates die within the first 6 hours. What's the third trial? Marcus asked, though he was so tired he could barely stand. Morrigan's expression became serious. The trial of mind. You must connect to the sanguinary collective consciousness and maintain your individual identity for 1 full hour. This is where most candidates fail, human. The collective contains the minds of our entire species stretching back thousands of years. The experience drives most beings insane. Marcus looked at Lirelei. She was crying silver tears, and he realized she thought he was going to die. Will it hurt? He asked. Yes, Morrigan said honestly. It will be the most painful hour of your life, but if you survive with your mind intact, you will have proven yourself worthy of joining our people. Marcus nodded. He had come too far to quit now. Let's do it. As the sanguinary prepared the mind-link device, Marcus thought about his life on the colony. He thought about lonely nights, staring at the stars, and about the warm feeling he got when he fixed a broken machine. He thought about Sarah's friendship, Jim's respect, and the laughter of the colony children. Most of all, he thought about Lirelei and the way she had looked at him when she first stepped off her ship. He was ready for the final trial. The mind-link device looked like something from a nightmare. It was made of living metal that moved and shifted, with thin cables that ended in needle-sharp points. Marcus sat in the chair they had brought from the sanguinary ship, trying not to think about what was going to happen to him. Lirelei knelt beside him, holding his hand. Marcus, you don't have to do this. We could try to run. My ship is fast. And leave everyone else here to die? Marcus shook his head. That's not who I am, Lirelei. That's not who humans are. Alder said, the Rees. I were Geft Pounder. The Reeser says not Morongs. Crescendin to Reeser 41. The Reeser 41-7. Content 41. Klein plays. High Counselor Morrigan stood nearby, watching with those cold blue eyes. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Once the connection begins, there is no stopping it. You will either survive the hour with your mind intact, or you will be destroyed. Marcus looked around the docking bay. Every colonist was there, watching him with hope and fear. These people had become his family over the past 3 years. Sarah Miller gave him an encouraging smile. Jim Patterson nodded with respect. Even the children were there, their parents holding them close. I'm ready, Marcus said. The sanguinary technicians attached the cables to Marcus's head. He felt sharp pain as they penetrated his skull, but then the pain disappeared as the alien technology interfaced with his brain. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded inside his mind. Marcus was no longer sitting in the docking bay of Kepler 442c colony. He was floating in space, surrounded by billions of stars, each one containing the memories and experiences of a sanguinari. The collective consciousness of an entire species crashed into his thoughts like a tsunami. He saw the birth of the sanguinari race on a world of crystal mountains and silver seas. He felt their first tentative steps into space, their wonder at discovering other intelligent species, their joy at finding compatible partners among the stars. But he also felt their pain, the destruction of their home world, the endless flight from the void hunters, the slow decline of their population as they became more and more selective in choosing mates, the loneliness of immortality. Thousands of voices spoke in his mind at once. Ancient philosophers debated the meaning of existence. Scientists shared theories about the nature of reality. Artists painted with light and sound and pure emotion. Marcus felt his own thoughts beginning to dissolve. How could one human mind contain the experiences of millions of beings who had lived for thousands of years each? He was like a drop of water, trying to hold back the ocean. But then he remembered something. He was Marcus Chen, an engineer from Earth who fixed broken machines on a colony at the edge of space. He had made a joke about marriage and somehow attracted the love of an alien woman. He was stubborn, determined, and too stupid to know when he was beaten. "I am Marcus Chen," he said into the cosmic storm of minds. "I am human." The sanguinari collective consciousness recoiled slightly. They had never encountered a mind that could maintain its individuality while connected to them. Most beings either broke under the pressure or were absorbed completely. But Marcus held on to who he was. He thought about fixing the atmospheric processor after 16 hours of work. He remembered the taste of bad coffee and the sound of children playing in the corridors. He held on to every simple human memory he had. And something amazing happened. The sanguinari minds that touched his began to experience things they had forgotten. Through Marcus's memories, they felt the satisfaction of solving a difficult problem with limited resources. They experienced the warmth of friendship in a small community where everyone looked out for each other. They felt wonder at simple things. The way sunlight looked different on an alien world. The taste of food shared with friends. The happiness that came from making someone else laugh. High Counselor Morrigan, monitoring the connection from outside, watched in amazement as the collective consciousness began to change. Ancient sanguinari, who had not felt genuine emotion in centuries, were suddenly laughing and crying as they experienced Marcus's memories. They saw through his eyes what it meant to be human. To live only a few decades, but to fill those years with purpose and connection. To face impossible odds and never give up. To find joy in small victories and meaning in simple moments. Marcus felt the shift in the collective. The crushing weight of ancient minds eased as the sanguinari began to rediscover emotions they had lost. He was still connected to all of them, but now they were listening to him instead of trying to absorb him. "You are remarkable," whispered a voice that belonged to one of the oldest sanguinari. "We had forgotten what it felt like to truly live. We have existed for so long that we stopped experiencing life. How do you do it?" asked another voice. "How do you find such meaning in such brief lives?" Marcus tried to explain, but it was hard to put into words. "I think it's because we know our time is limited. Every day matters, because we don't have forever. Every friendship is precious because we might lose it. Every small success feels important because we worked hard for it." The collective consciousness buzzed with new understanding. For the first time in millennia, the ancient sanguinari were learning something truly new. They were remembering how to hope, how to dream, how to find wonder in everyday experiences. The hour passed quickly. When the technicians disconnected Marcus from the device, he collapsed in the chair. Exhausted, but alive. His mind was still his own, but now it carried new knowledge and understanding of the galaxy. High Counselor Morrigan stared at Marcus with something that might have been respect. Around the docking bay, other sanguinari from the fleet had arrived to witness the trial. All of them looked amazed. In 10,000 years of testing, Morrigan said slowly, no candidate has ever maintained their individuality while connected to our collective. But more than that, you have taught us something we had forgotten. You have shown us how to live, not just exist. Marcus struggled to his feet, supported by Lirelei. Does that mean I passed? You have done more than pass, Morrigan replied. You have changed our entire species. The collective consciousness is buzzing with new ideas, new emotions, new possibilities. Our philosophers are debating concepts they had dismissed as primitive. Our artists are creating works inspired by human experiences. He paused and looked around at the colonists. We came here to destroy this place and its people. Instead, we have discovered that humanity may be exactly what the sanguinari need to survive as a species. Morrigan stepped forward and placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. I declare the trials complete. Marcus Chen of Earth has proven himself worthy of joining our people. More importantly, he has proven that his species deserves our respect and alliance. The docking bay erupted in cheers. The colonists hugged each other and cried with relief. Lirelei threw her arms around Marcus and kissed him, her silver tears of joy mixing with his own. What happens now? Marcus asked, when he could finally speak. Now we plan a wedding, Lirelei said with a smile that lit up her whole face. And my people begin the process of establishing formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Morrigan nodded. Your colony will become the first embassy between our species. Other sanguinari ships are already requesting permission to visit and learn more about human culture. And Marcus gets to keep fixing machines, Jim Patterson added with a grin. Because even with all this alien technology, someone still needs to maintain the coffee maker. 3 weeks later, the colony's main hall was decorated with both human and sanguinari symbols. Marcus stood at the front, wearing his best clothes, which admittedly weren't very impressive. Beside him, Lirelei glowed with happiness in a dress that seemed to be made of starlight itself. High Counselor Morrigan performed the ceremony, reading vows in both English and the musical language of the sanguinari. Sarah Miller cried happy tears as she recorded everything for the historical archives. The colony children threw flower petals that floated in the artificial gravity. By the laws of both our species, Morrigan announced, I declare you bonded for life. May your union bring wisdom to both your peoples. Marcus and Lirelei kissed as husband and wife while the assembled crowd cheered. Through the windows of the hall, they could see both human and sanguinari ships in orbit, working together on the first joint research projects between their species. Later that evening, as the celebration continued around them, Marcus and Lirelei stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Marcus still couldn't quite believe this was real. Do you regret it? Lirelei asked softly. Leaving behind a normal human life for all of this strangeness? Marcus thought about his joke in the mess hall 3 months ago. He had been lonely, desperate, and convinced that no one in the universe would ever want him. Now he was married to the most amazing woman he had ever met, and his stupid joke had somehow opened the door to friendship between 2 entire species. Are you kidding? He said, pulling her closer. This is the best thing that ever happened to me, although I do have one complaint. What's that? Marcus grinned. You're going to have to help me figure out how to explain all this to my parents when they visit next year. Lirelei laughed, the sound like silver bells in the recycled air. Around them, the stars shone down on the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, all because one lonely human had made a joke about wanting to get married. Sometimes the best things in life really do come from the most unexpected places.